You're watching the KOAM morning news on Fox 14. Today, a late evening collision shuts down a section of the Will Rogers Turnpike. We'll have those details.
A bit of everything at us. We've got a rain-splattered tower cam at 7th and Range Line, including fog on this Thursday morning. And now we've got freezing rain on the way in time for the new year. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, we'll introduce you to a company that's one step closer to making autonomous driving an everyday reality. All that and more coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM morning news on Fox 14. I'm Bronte Sorotsky. The I-44 Will Rogers Turnpike was closed near SH-10 in Miami, Oklahoma due to a crash. It was between Industrial Boulevard Parkway to SH-10 or mile marker 313 to mile marker 302 on the turnpike. The closure lasted until 3 a.m. this morning. Traffic was detoured to Industrial Parkway to SH-10 Steve Owens Boulevard in Miami, to southbound US 69, US 59, back to the westbound I-44 Will Rogers Turnpike near Afton. Police in Arkansas Tuesday night arrested a Missouri boarding school doctor accused of several child sex crimes. They caught 57-year-old David Smock in Harrison, Arkansas, not far from the Missouri border. He had been considered a fugitive for several days. Smock is the longtime physician at Agape Boarding School. The Christian school remains under scrutiny after 5 staffers were charged in September with assaulting students. Smock is charged in 2 Missouri counties with sodomy, child molestation, sexual misconduct involving a child, and enticement or attempted enticement of a child. A judge sentences the suspect in a Carl Junction shooting death. Jeremiah Tyner entered a plea agreement to involuntary manslaughter for the June 2020 shooting death of Amanda Parker. The judge gave Tyner a deferred sentence of 7 years in prison, but Tyner is permitted to opt for a 120-day shock treatment instead. Authorities say Tyner was cleaning a handgun in a mobile home with Parker. Tyner then reached for a rifle that discharged. The bullet struck and killed Parker. Earlier this week, we told you about plans for Lincoln Heights, a proposed tiny community in Joplin for homeless people. Well, on Wednesday, some members of the community went to help clean up the proposed site, the old botany shop on East 7th Street. Volunteers picked up trash in that area.
These are important for, the obvious reasons, just to beautify our areas, but also just today at this community cleanup, I've met 3 or 4 people I've never met before in my life. And it's a chance to meet other people in the community, and I think we need more of that.
There is some opposition to the Lincoln Heights plans. One person against it is Ted Johnson, the owner of the flip shop. The proposed housing for Lincoln Heights would be right by his shop, and Ted is concerned about it not staying clean and possibly attracting criminals.
Well, my concern is that they're going to keep it clean over there and everything, and about if they're going to patrol like they're supposed to be patrolling everything and what's coming in, and where they're going to build them at. We on the north side of the bridge here, and we'll make sure to keep it clean as possible. We see them come through, they leave trash, and paperwork everywhere, their clothes everywhere and stuff, and I'm concerned about that.
The group behind the project has 6 months to access the land and show improvement. Scientists in Europe believe they have found the biggest bug that ever lived after a complete fluke. In January 2018, a chunk of sandstone fell from a cliff on a beach in northern England. The rock cracked open, revealing the fossil of a giant millipede, the creature named Arthroplura. Dates back 326 million years. Scientists gather the animal would have weighed about 110 pounds and been about 22 inches wide and more than 8 feet long. Only 2 other, much smaller, of these species have ever been discovered. These creatures crawled on Earth for about 45 million years before going extinct, likely from the changing climate or the arrival of reptiles.
Yeah, get them, reptiles.
The fossil is set to go on display at the Sedgwick Museum in Cambridge, England in 2022.
I am not skittish about many things.
No,
The measurements you just gave of that, okay, when I think bug, I can swat it.
Yeah, no,
I can't swat that.
That thing will swat you.
I run.
Yeah. I wonder if those things are fast.
Our ancestors, if this thing was around, they were running.
Oh, yes.
No, they probably weren't. They're much tougher than I am. They were probably hunting.
Still,
us,
that grossed me out.
But look at it for that gentleman down there in the corner. Look at him for scale. And imagine the size of that thing. Okay. For those of you that may be new to our show, number one, thank you for watching. But number two, and Bronte, want you in on the joke as well. Anytime that we do a story with anything that has wings and a stinger, like my palms sweat and like you can see the precipitation or the perspiration, weather geek. You can see the perspiration come off of me. This is actually making me super uncomfortable thinking about this thing.
My palms are actually sweaty. I'm glad you said it, so I'm not less embarrassed. It's both of us at least.
Yes. Okay.
But I don't like it.
Ron and Carenza, who are excellent producers, can we never run a story about a bug that large ever again? I would greatly appreciate it. That's a great find. I mean, I know historically it's important. All right, Bronte, there, as you and I are talking, we're starting to see some additional raindrops fall upon our tower cam at 7th and Rangeline. So the mist is actually turning into a light rain. Not only that, you can tell the haze down there. That is a pretty good dense fog, and that's why we have dense fog advisories ranging from southwest Missouri, and those do, in fact, run into northeast Oklahoma. These color codes, these are for winter storm watches and what the National Weather Service deems in white as a special weather statement. That's all for Saturday morning. For today, we need to, number one, make sure we got our low beams on, make sure, number two, a lot of room between you and other drivers, as our visibility numbers now dropping below a mile in Welch and Oklahoma. So especially there on the turnpike on 44, Bronte telling us earlier about that late night crash that shut down portions of 44 up by Highway 10 for hours this morning. Let's everybody get an early head start and back off, because that is going to be our key factor for the morning. Now about 9:30, we'll be done with the fog. Rain gonna linger a little bit, but eventually highs around 60 degrees and some sunshine. Big factor that we're gonna break down here in just a little bit. Look at Friday night into Saturday. We're gonna go from 65 to the 20s. Yes, that Saturday panel does have snowflakes on it. More importantly, it's got freezing rain. Bronte, we're going to talk about New Year's Eve and New Year's Eve Day when I see you here in a bit.
Thank you. Studies find the Omicron variant reduced the protection from Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine, but the booster shot restored that protection. And later, we'll meet a Finnish man who would rather blow up his Tesla than replace the battery. We'll tell you why. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14.
There's a whole
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration authorized 2 new over-the-counter at-home COVID-19 tests on Wednesday. As part of the Biden administration's commitment to increase access to COVID-19 testing. The Roche & Simon's at-home test went through the administrator's new accelerated review program. The tests are the first to gain FDA authorization through the program, which is set to bring tens of millions of new tests per month to the U.S. In late October, the Department of Health and Human Services announced the administration would invest $70 million for more at-home tests. Last week, President Biden announced new actions to ensure Americans have access to free testing, including convenient at-home tests. Biden committed to buy 500 million at-home tests, which will be provided to Americans for free starting in January. If you had 2 doses of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, studies show you might not be as protected from Omicron. But the good news is 2 reports show that booster dose restores that protection. It also showed that even with 3 doses of the vaccine, Omicron was still more threatening compared to Delta. A team at Israel's Ministry of Health looked at the blood from vaccinated volunteers, comparing Omicron-infected cells after 2 doses and then 3. Also noted in one of the studies, a clear reminder that even with less protection from Omicron, the 2 doses will still protect people from severe disease and even death. A body in motion tends to stay in motion, and shedding extra weight reduces the risk of severe COVID. Michael George has some of the day's top health stories.
Prior weight loss through bariatric surgery was associated with 60% lower risk of severe COVID-19 infection. The Cleveland Clinic study also found that patients who had undergone weight loss surgery cut their risk of hospitalization from coronavirus by nearly half. Researchers say this shows obesity is a modifiable risk factor for COVID-19. A study from UCLA found while black men tended to have more aggressive prostate cancer when they started clinical trials, they had better outcomes from radiation therapy than white men. Doctors say there may be underlying differences in biology, but the data will nevertheless help them identify possible disparities in cancer care. Experts in rehabilitation research are advocating exercise for patients with multiple sclerosis. They say incorporating physical exercise into care plans can help manage fatigue, depression, and declines in mobility, balance, and cognition. Those are some of the day's top health stories. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Everything is better with bacon, right? If you agree, then today's your day. It's National Bacon Day, a day that reminds us that bacon is not just for breakfast. Enjoy it on a burger or salad, as a pizza topping, or perhaps as a maple bacon donut or chocolate-covered bacon on a stick. According to the National Day of calendar, the United States and Canada make bacon from the pork belly. Other countries around the world use the side and back cuts of pork. The meat is cured in either a salt brine or a salt pack. It is then either dried, boiled, or smoked. In 2020, over half of the U.S. population said they used a pound or more of bacon. That's a lot of bacon.
Well, but this surprises me a little bit because when we did National Chocolate Day earlier this week,
I think that was a lot more chocolate.
it was more chocolate. I find that hard to believe. And maybe that's just personal preference.
I don't know. I'm not too much of a bacon person myself.
Okay.
But you are? Is that, or you just a little
I'll
more
take bacon
surprised
over
by
chocolate
this?
8 days a week.
Interesting.
That's a no-brainer.
Okay.
Got some spaghetti carbonara? Does that have
Yeah.
bacon in it? Yeah, it does. Yes, but I think National Bacon Day, that seems like pretty apolitical, something we can all get behind in the end.
Yeah.
Live look over 7th and Rangeline, where we're actually picking up a little bit rain-wise. We've gone from a mist to an actual rain, luckily above the freezing point, 37 degrees. Also having to tolerate fog that results in dense fog advisories. Look at that visibility down throughout northeast Oklahoma, less than a mile, less than 2 miles in Parsons and Oswego, Carl Junction, Carthage, and Neosho. These started out this morning, less than 2 miles. Need everybody to be very, very careful. Just a friendly reminder, low beams, a lot of room between you and other drivers. Don't really have the possibility of a whole lot of it freezing over, even as you push off to the west right here. At least we're right at, if not slightly above. And our ground being so warm that will actually help prevent that fog from that precipitation from the fog freezing to our roadways. Later on this afternoon, fog done about 9:30, up into the mid to high 50s, partly sunny skies, overnight looking very nice. So let's go ahead and transition into New Year's Day. For those of you making a road trip, for those of you gathering with family and friends, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're waking up tomorrow morning, temperatures 50s, not too bad at all. But then as we get into the afternoon and evening hours, rain moves in from the southwest. Getting ready to celebrate the new year. When we turn the clock, heavy rain from southwest to northeast. This is the important factor up here. That's the cold front. And so after we ring in 2022, try to get home early, please, because freezing rain is going to work its way from the northwest all the way down to the southeast throughout Saturday morning. We will have hazardous driving conditions. As a matter of fact, we have winter weather watches in effect for most of southeast Kansas and the northern portion of southwest Missouri. Our temperatures plummet down overnight from Saturday to Sunday. Be wary of your outdoor plumbing, and also too, make sure your pets are taken care of. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
The curtain.
Imagine being mad enough that you would blow up your own car. Well, that's what one gentleman did. He had a Tesla. Jeannie Moose with the explosive video.
Ever get so mad at repair bills that you wanted to blow up your car? Me neither, but this Finnish guy was beyond finished with his 2013 Tesla Model S after he says he got an estimate of over $22,000 to replace his battery. Tomas Katainen was asked which would be better, a working Tesla or 66 pounds of dynamite exploding.
No periaatteessa kumpaakin, mutta enempi ehkä räjäyttää.
Tomas went to the Bomb Dudes, in Finnish, Poma Jatkit, a YouTube channel known for blowing things up. Tomas didn't have to pay. The Bomb Dudes used volunteers to rig the car with dynamite. Tomas bought the 2013 Tesla used about a year and a half ago. They even choppered in a dummy meant to resemble Elon Musk. To take that final ride, Tomas got to push the button. The explosion at a former quarry was captured from every angle. The video exploded on the internet, with one poster asking Elon Musk, "Could you get him a new one, please?" CNN asked Tesla for comment, but got no response. This isn't the first Tesla to be blasted. SpaceX launched a rocket which released a Tesla Roadster with Starman at the wheel. They're still orbiting the sun, made on Earth by humans, while this Tesla was exploded on Earth by humans. Sinimos.
Ei jää nyt jäljelle.
CNN, New York.
Now, according to Tesla, the standard warranty on the model covers 8 years or 150,000 miles. But get this, it may be voided if the battery is opened or serviced by anyone not authorized by Tesla. We'll be back with this morning's four-state hero right after this.
Time to honor today's four-state hero, Private First Class Kenneth Price from Miami, Oklahoma. He served in Germany and France from 1942 to 1945. We thank you, Private First Class Kenneth Price, today's four-state hero. Automation is the way of the future, and one San Diego-based company founded in 2015 says it may be the solution to the supply chain issues. David Caltibiano shows us how.
This is not your ordinary semi because it can drive all by itself.
We had literally one instance where I think some other big truck driver passed us and it slowed down because he realized there wasn't anybody in the cabin.
San Diego-based Too Simple kept track as the truck followed its route along the I-10 from Tucson to Phoenix. The 80-mile trip took a little more than an hour to complete. Chen Liu is the company's CEO.
You think about it, you're operating a truck that is 80,000 pounds, driving 65 miles an hour, navigating both surface streets and highways.
Liu says this stretch of interstate is ideal for the first driverless route. Unmarked law enforcement vehicles supervise the entire trip, trailing half a mile behind the autonomous 18-wheeler.
I-10 is the busiest corridor for Class A trucks. I think the significance of this is not only the technology side, but really this is a full commercial route. We went from a terminal onto a highway and back into a very busy distribution center.
The business has 70 self-driving trucks that have already racked up millions of miles. The CEO believes this emerging industry could be a solution to the supply chain issues we've seen this year.
The only way you can create new freight capacity to solve the supply chain constraints is to not have drivers. Today is a major step towards that.
This initial test is part of a larger pilot program for Too Simple that will continue into 2022. Another half hour of news and weather just ahead, coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Michael sits down with an interventional cardiologist to talk heart health, and we'll take a look at how one new study that shows religion may be on the decline in America. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
At a time. The four states' most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:29. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Police in Arkansas Tuesday night arrested a Missouri boarding school doctor accused of several child sex crimes. They caught 57-year-old David Smock in Harrison, Arkansas, not far from the Missouri border. He had been considered a fugitive for several days. Smock is the longtime physician at Agape Boarding School. The Christian school remains under scrutiny after 5 staffers were charged in September with assaulting students. Smock is charged in 2 Missouri counties with sodomy, child molestation, sexual misconduct involving a child, and enticement or attempted enticement of a child. A judge sentences the suspect in a Carl Junction shooting death. Jeremiah Tyner entered a plea agreement to involuntary manslaughter for the June 2020 shooting death of Amanda Parker. The judge gave Tyner a deferred sentence of 7 years in prison, but Tyner is permitted to opt for a 120-day shock treatment instead. Authorities say Tyner was cleaning a handgun in a mobile home with Parker. Tyner then reached for a rifle that discharged. The bullet struck and killed Parker. A Sarcoxie woman who was scammed by a person pretending to be world-renowned chef Gordon Ramsay is speaking out to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. We told you about Michelle Huffman. Michelle joined a Gordon Ramsay Facebook fan page and was messaged by someone she thought was the chef. After messaging for months, the imposter convinced Michelle to send $1,000 in Google Play and iTunes gift cards so they could buy a house together. Michelle says she has received a lot of negative comments for sharing her story, but wants it to be a lesson for others to be careful online.
You know, it's just been really hard. And people have had a lot of negative things to say about me, and that's okay, because I knew that coming into this. But unless you have had it happen to you, you don't understand it.
Michelle says she did file complaints with the Better Business Bureau and the Missouri Attorney General about the scam. School is starting up again for many area students next week, but some kids are getting in some last-minute winter break fun. Crossroads Baptist Church in Gerard is hosting a winter vacation Bible school. The event features activities like games, skits, Bible lessons, and arts and crafts.
Well, we're having our first ever winter vacation Bible school. We always have one in the summer, but we thought, you know, we're competing with all the other churches in the area when we have one in the summer, and no one does a winter one. So why not? The kids are on break and bored after Christmas, and give them something fun to do.
The camp continues today from 1 p.m. to 3. On Christmas Day, someone left a zipped-up duffel bag on the counter of a Quick Trip store in Tulsa. In that bag were 5 puppies, so a worker at the store contacted the Tulsa Police Department. But the story has a happy ending. 4 of the officers that responded each adopted 1 puppy. A worker at the Quick Trip adopted the 5th puppy.
Okay, so for every story that we do for 2021 that's been a rough one, thank you for finishing with that.
Yeah.
That is, well, unfortunate that it happened, but a great
happy
ending. Right there. That is tremendous. All right, Bronte, we've got some breaking news coming out of the travel industry, and it is not weather related. As you'll notice from our national map, things not looking too bad, but JetBlue announcing this morning it is canceling some 1,300 flights up until the middle of January. And I know we're about to get back to our normal schedules, but with that being said, if you have a flight planned, and specifically if it is with JetBlue, I want you to check on that this morning. Here we are over 7th and Rangeline, the visibility getting worse and worse as we progress through. Now the light mist, at least it's let up just a little bit, but the fog has not, and that's why we've got dense fog advisories. They stretch from southwest Missouri down into northeast Oklahoma. This is for our winter weather that'll be here on Saturday morning. Back to 7th and Rangeline, 37 degrees. Now that's not bad because that'll keep the fog from freezing over. But our visibility numbers, they are below 2 miles. We've actually gotten a little bit better here in Welch and Miami. We had 9/10 of a mile earlier. And then throughout Carl Junction, Carthage, that area, Old 96, if you're going to be on it, just be very, very careful, please. Let's go 7-day forecast, and then we'll work backwards and give you an idea of what we're going to have for Friday and Saturday. Not too bad this afternoon. We'll be okay. Not too bad, as a matter of fact, for even New Year's Day, New Year's night, New Year's Eve night is what I should say. is when we're going to develop rain. But the big factor is going to be top left-hand portion of your screen, because that cold front's going to work in, and just as we ring in the new year, there are going to be hazardous travel conditions. Want everybody on your toes, plan accordingly. Maybe leave the party early. Ring in the new year, maybe 9, 10 o'clock, and get home, because Saturday we've got a mess on our hands. We're going to have freezing rain transitioning into snow and single-digit low temperatures from Saturday into Sunday. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
There's a whole lot of Christmas.
Last year, authorities were called to this home in Fairfax.
Back to the KOAM Morning News. One of the great things as we get ready to start a new year, coming off of what I hope is a wonderful Christmas for Dr. David Robbins. Number one, thank you so much for your time this morning. We're reinstituting what we call our Med Day Wednesdays, and so this is great to actually have you in studio. Dr. Robbins is an interventional cardiologist. To put it in layman's terms, he's a heart doc, and he's the one that potentially saves our lives. And thank you so much. You've been at Ascension via Christi now for, what about 6 months?
About 6 months.
About 6 months? What brought you here to the 4 states? I know you're no stranger to the Midwest. You're coming out of Kansas City. What brought you to our neck of the woods?
Yeah, so I worked in Kansas City for about 12 years, and it was time for a change, and I was looking around for different jobs and found this opportunity, and it seemed like it was going to be a good fit, so here I am.
So one of the things that's so important to us here in our particular 18-county area is the fact that we are known for poor heart health. Let's call a spade a spade. And so that's why we turn to people like you. And as we get ready to open up a new year, New Year's resolutions are going to be on a lot of people's minds. What are some of the things that you stress to people? Look for this, look for that. Don't have to come see me. What do you advise people?
So I mean, obviously the main symptoms would be if people are starting to have some sort of tightness in their chest, especially if it's with exertion. And another one that people sometimes overlook is shortness of breath or just fatigue. And we see this a lot in older people because they think, well, I'm getting short of breath because I'm getting older and I don't exercise enough. And sometimes they just won't recognize that that could actually be a symptom of heart disease. And, if you start having those kinds of symptoms, it might be a good time to talk to your doctor about it.
So even if I'm participating in, let's say I'm older and I participate even in moderate exercise, if I feel it becoming chronic, is that what I need to look for?
Yeah, if you realize that you're just, maybe you rode your bicycle for 10 miles a day, and now you can only get to 8 because you just are exhausted. Okay. And then a few months later, it's 6. And it's that sort of thing where people will sometimes think, well, I'm just getting older. And it may happen slowly over 6 months, a year. And if people don't recognize that could be a symptom of heart disease as opposed to just getting older.
And I think the other thing is technology is never going to slow down. Medical advancements are always going to be made. And that's where I kind of lean on you to tell me about the Cath lab at Ascension via Christi in Pittsburgh. Relatively new. I mean, there's an entire shift as far as the footprint of it went and whatnot. But those 2 words, Cath lab, that is scary to somebody when they find out that they may have to go in there. But I know that after you talk to a heart doctor that you can assuage some of those fears. How do you explain to people the procedure?
So, we usually first tell them why we think they need the procedure, and then go through the different benefits and risks of the procedure. And the reality is the risk of a major complication with a heart cath is only about 1 out of 1,000, 1 or 2 out of 1,000. And the nice thing about it is with stents and the other technologies we have, if we go in there and we find blockage that we can fix with stents, we just do it right there, then and there.
Oh, so, and forgive me for using this phrase because I don't want to downplay it. It's like one-stop shopping.
Essentially. Now, some people will need open heart surgery, and for those people, we have to make that arrangement later. But if it's especially important if somebody's having a full-blown heart attack and they're in our emergency room, then we activate our team, and we can have them in the cath lab within 15 minutes and their arteries open in less than an hour.
And folks, if you've never seen the team that Dr. Robbins has, if you've never seen them work, number one, they're second to none. Number two, there is no time wasted. Where does technology go from here? What's on the future of interventional cardiology for you?
So the stents keep getting better and better. One of the issues we've had with stents in the past is some people, the stent will either clot off with a blood clot. So we've been keeping people on blood thinners for a certain amount of time. As the stent technology has gotten better, we are now reducing the amount of time that people need to be on blood thinners, so then we're reducing the risk of bleeding.
Absolutely
and
amazing.
Other things that can happen to stent is too much scar tissue grows inside. And as the stent technology improves, we can decrease that amount of scar tissue and stents last longer and longer.
One of the things I never even would have thought about was scar tissue building up around those. Dr. David Robbins, it's a pleasure to meet you, sir.
Same here.
Thank you so much for your time. Welcome to the 4 states.
Thank you.
And I know you've been here 6 months, but first time in studio, so welcome. And once again, if you want to get a hold of Dr. Robbins via Christi Ascension, and once again, like he said, he's the business, but do yourself a favor, try to start off 2022 and delay seeing Dr. Robbins.
But not if you're having a heart attack.
There you go. Yes. You feel the chest pain or anything like that, do not delay. Do not delay. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
I used to need my very own.
Reporter Anthony Porra spoke with some automakers about the potentially life-saving technology.
This year, authorities were called to this home in Fairfax County, Virginia, after a father accidentally left his 11-month-old daughter in the back seat of a car for several hours. The baby was rushed to the hospital but could not be saved. The advocacy group Kids in Cars says, on average, 39 children die in hot cars each year.
Bravo!
Now, a new provision in the infrastructure law could help prevent some of these tragedies. It requires automakers to install backseat alert systems in all new vehicles. General Motors already has one in most models. Chevy's Shed Balch shows us how the technology works.
Rear seat reminder is activated just by opening the door. So back door opens and the car assumes you're putting something back here.
The reminder kicks in at the end of the drive.
We'll power off the vehicle and you'll see it pop up and you hear the audible chimes.
You can't miss it.
Yeah, and that's the whole goal, is just to get the driver's attention as they're getting out of the vehicle to take one last look in the back seat.
Some models, like this Hyundai SUV, go a step further and are equipped with motion detectors.
It's an ultrasonic sensor that looks for motion inside the cabin.
Hyundai's Brian Latouf helped us test it with a person sitting in the back seat of a locked car.
And we're walking away from the car now. And then what happens?
Then if there's motion in the back,
that's quite loud.
It's quite loud.
The alarm goes off and the driver is sent an alert.
We've gotten some strong positive responses to it, and we think it's the right thing to do.
It's not yet known when the rear seat reminder mandate will go into effect. The law gives the Department of Transportation 2 years to implement the new rule. Anthony Pura, CBS News, Fountain Valley, California.
As technology advances, there are always changes in the way people do things, including how they participate in sports. Fox's Danielle Miller has that story.
A lot of it, from the mental side of it to the training side of it to the business side, is very, very sports-like.
Scott Smith talking about esports. The industry has completely taken off, and there's no sign of it stopping.
There's a competitive platform. People play for money, for sponsorships, for glory. Some of these players and some of these games are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, millions in prize purse. Again, much like you and I can play basketball, we don't play in the NBA. You and I can play League of Legends, but you have to get all the way up here to play in their NBA, the LCS.
Smith proving you can make a career out of esports, even if you're not a pro gamer. His company, Do Not Peak Entertainment, is helping to promote, grow, and support the industry.
Gaming news, esports news, roster moves, all that kind of stuff. What we're prepping for today is I do a weekly show called The Breakdown that is kind of a weekly roundup of gaming and esports related news.
Smith says the stigma of being a gamer is becoming a thing of the past. He credits that for its rise in popularity.
We'll be right back with more after this, but first, let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell.
Welcome to Sonic.
A new study shining light on the religious decline taking place in the United States. Marianne Rafferty has more on that and why members of the Catholic faith are recruiting priests from Africa to serve in America.
A recent study from the Pew Research Center finds Americans are becoming less religious, with 30% of all U.S. adults now identifying as either atheists or agnostics. But getting more people into pews isn't the only problem. According to the Associated Press, the Catholic Church is seeing a decline in the number of people becoming spiritual leaders.
We are experiencing a shortage of priests currently.
And the issue is causing some dioceses to outsource priests, recruiting ones from countries in Africa to preach here in the States instead.
They have been an enormous help to us.
But the transition can come with a little shell shock for these international priests.
I see myself in this rural country. It was like, where am I? What am I doing?
Still, many say the love people have for their God is what inspires them to stay.
Initially, I did not feel like I want to, be here. But when I look at the faith of the people, to be honest with you, I say I want to serve.
As for the parishioners, many are enjoying the different perspectives being brought to their services from these priests abroad.
He brings a lot of his culture in explaining the scripture. So Father kind of ties everything in to how he grew up and then maybe how things are different here.
The Pew Research study also found among the different types of Christians, Protestants saw the largest rate of decline. Still, more Americans consider themselves religious than not. Marianne Rafferty, Fox News.
I want to start with an update as far as flight schedules, whether you have family or friends, maybe you yourself traveling by air over the holiday weekend. We are now up to 1,000 flights that have been canceled nationwide, whether it be today or tomorrow. 1,000 flights. JetBlue canceling 1,300 flights of its own up until January 13th. Now, it's not weather related. It is actually Omicron Delta related. Here's where we stand over 7th and Rangeline. Light mist, but the most important thing is the fog that we're seeing. Dense fog advisories ranging from southwest Missouri into northeast Oklahoma. We'll get to what the blue and the white mean here in just a little bit, but let's tackle Thursday morning first. 37 degrees and warm ground. That means nothing should flip over and freeze. It's visibility that I want everybody to be concerned about. Carl Junction now slipping below 1 mile. Remember, a lot of room between you and other drivers, low beams, as our temperatures range anywhere from about 31 to 46. Up to the northwest, that's where it will remain kind of dry and clear. Get down below 44, that's where it gets a little iffy. Future track. Today, we'll actually end up with some sunshine, temps in the 50s for your New Year's Eve. Day's going to be fine, afternoon's going to be fine. Then we got to talk about some serious driving conditions. Friday night, the rain develops, but most importantly, we've got a massive cold front that develops up to our northwest. And so as we push toward the new year, as you get ready to ring it in, here we go. We're starting to see freezing rain develop. For those of you that are out with family, friends, and enjoying hopefully a great New Year's, may want to back off, make that time frame, make sure you get home a little early, because as we push through Saturday morning, the freezing rain begins to spread down to the southeast. If you get below 44, it'll probably remain as rain for the time being, but eventually what we're going to end up with are some snowflakes on Saturday, and look at that overnight low, down to single digits. Take care of those outdoor pipes right now. Make sure they're insulated. Make sure your pets are not out for extended periods of time. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
It's the new year. Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. The White House says President Biden and Russian leader Vladimir Putin will speak today, with Ukraine said to be at the top of the agenda. The call was requested by Putin. There are now upwards of 100,000 Russian troops gathered on the Ukrainian border. The World Health Organization warned that the combination of the Delta and Omicron variants could create a tsunami of new infections. Across the U.S., the numbers of children in the hospital with COVID is up 74%. In the last month, scientists say the data so far shows Omicron is causing milder symptoms in children than the Delta variant. And a jury found Ghislaine Maxwell, the former girlfriend of accused sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein, guilty of 5 of the 6 charges against her, including the most serious of grooming and trafficking of young girls. In 2019, Epstein died in a Manhattan jail cell as he awaited trial. Officers ruled it a suicide. Now let's check in with Michael for your final look at the weather.
Bronte got to fight the mist and the fog this morning, but by the time we get to the afternoon, we'll go mid to high 50s. A big factor, I just want everybody on guard because the rain for New Year's Eve becomes freezing rain and snow for New Year's Day. Please plan appropriately. We can do the Tiger Cup kicker. Let's do it.
Oh, I don't know.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Okay. The Lone Star State is welcoming 2 new bouncing bundles of joy. These 2 adorable tiger cubs were born at the Dallas Zoo December 6th. Workers are raising the male and female cubs by hand.
I wanted to do it because it said the Lone Star State.
Right, I remember you telling me.
There you go. Thank you so much for letting us put the good in your morning. We'll be back with more news and updated weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and a better day.
'Tis the season to win big